can make sure that people who cannot attend can join us later, or at least get their questions answered. With that, let me also make sure that I share my screen. There we go. All right. You see two friendly faces on this, and I will go into introductions in a minute. I will be doing, I'm going to say, the first 10 or 15 minutes of the talking, and then make an introduction to Ellington West, who is CEO of Sonavi Labs. She is a 2023 alum of MedTech Innovator. And so, Ellington, really appreciate you being here. And I'll give you a chance to go off camera and multitask for a while, because you sure know what MedTech Innovator is about. And I'll make sure to call you back to share some of your experiences. With that, we're going to get started. Hello, my name is Diane Buis. I am the program director for MedTech Innovator. And I'm delighted to have you here at this first info session for the 2024 program, where we opened applications, and we want to make sure that we're here for your questions. If this is the first time you're really hearing about MedTech Innovator, it's a great opportunity to tell you what we're about. If this is not the first time you're hearing about MedTech Innovator, to go a little bit deeper on what should you do or should you not do in your application, and why should you apply in the first place. So MedTech Innovator is the industry's largest nonprofit global competition and accelerator for medical devices, digital health diagnostics. And I'll single out BioTools companies. We have a separate program, and I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And the next info session will be combined with BioTools. And so if you're more in the BioTools space, you should stick around, and you should definitely come to the next session. But really, we are here to accelerate medtech companies that are bringing life-changing and transforming, technologies to market, and are transforming healthcare. So with that, as I mentioned, MedTech Innovator is the largest accelerator for medtech companies in the world. We have, and so that can be measured in a variety of ways. But in our 11 years of existence, there have been 44 acquisitions, over $7 billion in follow-on funding. You would definitely be joining a great team of innovators. And so what I really feel differentiates MTI is, and I just alluded to that, is community. It is really this group of over 600 other high growth medtech CEOs that you're joining. I always joke that you can only join the MedTech Innovator family. You can never leave it. Once you're an alum, you are part of the family, and we really do care about your future success, and we want to be part of your future success. So the community is really important. The mentorship is a critical part, and I'll talk more about that in a second. That is the part that I find the greatest differentiator with other accelerator programs. It is the partners and mentors of our program. The other thing that I'd like to point out is the visibility. At the very start of the program, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the timeline, at the very start of the program, we start by putting you on stage at the Wilson Sonsini conference, a big MedTech conference in San Francisco. And at the end of the program in October, we put you on stage at the AdvaMed conference. And time and again, I see our founders walk off stage straight into conversations with 3, 4, 5 investors. And that really makes a huge difference. So that visibility, and then last not least, resources. And we'll talk more about those in a second as well. So those I find the main differentiators. This year, I mentioned the summit. We kick off with a summit in San Francisco right before the Wilson Sonsini conference. This is this year's picture. It's a great group of founders and a great group of supporters. And so I already alluded to the fact that what really differentiates us is our partners. You can find those on the website, but if you look closely, you see this is in many ways the who's who of MedTech. Large corporates, that you might potentially in some future want to sell your company to. Service providers that have been in the field for a long time and really know what they're talking about when it comes to designing clinical trials, getting FDA approval, reimbursement, you name it. So we work with really great partners, and our mentors hail straight from that partner pool. And that, I think if you look at some of those logos, you can knock on the door of one of those companies for a long time, and you might even get a call or two. You're unlikely to get 4 months of mentorship from any of them outside of MedTech Innovator, and we're very fortunate that way, and grateful for our great partners. So with that, I will not walk through the 10 reasons startups fail. I assume that the majority of our audience are founders. It's a perilous journey. And for each of these, you need to have people around you who have done things before and who can tell you where you're going on the wrong end of the journey. And so I'll jump straight into what I'll call the antidote. So what is it? MedTech Innovator, so we do an educational curriculum. At the beginning of the accelerator program, we have a conversation with each company to really understand, what do you need within the next year? What are you trying to achieve within the next year? And how can we match you to resources and education that helps you in the next 4 months to get there? The mentorship, I already mentioned that, right? It is the mentors, a corporate mentor and service provider mentor, but also access to all the other mentors and all the other resources. So mentorship, really important. The resources and funding. Most of you know that you have a chance of winning up to $1 million of non-dilutive funding in the context of a couple of competitions that we hold. The biggest check that we write is a $300,000 winner of MTI check. And so you could win $300,000 of non-dilutive funding, and that is definitely a large draw. However, I often say, especially for later stage companies, when you're raising a Series B or a Series C, that amount of money may not be critical to you, but at that level, you may need the exposure. So the resources, really, the in-kind services, discounts, are really important. So we're partnering with investors. We're talking with business development folk. And so the community I mentioned, the recognition and visibility, really critical factors. I already mentioned the accelerator program. It's a virtual accelerator program. And for those who don't get in at first attempt, you can watch on our YouTube channel all past webinars. What's different between what you can do if you're not part of the MedTech Innovator family and if you are part of the MedTech Innovator family is the difference between watching something on YouTube, where after the webinar ends, it's over. And our cohort always gets the chance to do a private Q&A after the public session, so that you can ask your the types of questions that the speakers may not want to answer on a recorded line, but are maybe willing to answer in a very direct, no limitations way, in a one-on-one or in a small group conversation. So that's the difference between what you get with the webinars when you just watch them on YouTube and when you watch them live as part of the cohort. Already mentioned the mentorship. This is, many people ask, are we in scope? So I get lots of emails from you, and you may be one of the people who have sent one of those emails. Are we in scope for MedTech Innovator? And so I want to talk about a couple of things. One is, what are the areas of interest? And so in general, when I say MedTech Innovator, I say medical devices, class 1, 2, 3, diagnostics, and digital health. But there's also some ancillary things outside of those. And we have on our website a more dedicated list of those. So I encourage you to go to the website, and look at the strategic interest areas. We do update those as we talk with our partners about 2024. They're mostly updated, but if you look back a couple of weeks from now, if we have more conversations, we'll do more updates. And my recommendation is always to apply. But so those are our strategic interest areas. We have a 5% acceptance rate. And so that means, and I've gotten a couple of emails from people saying, I'm not going to apply again. I applied 2-3 times. And I respect that. But I would say if you are applying to your favorite college and you don't get in at first attempt, you might apply a second time or a third time as well. And I can tell you that we have numerous alumni who didn't get in at first attempt and got great value out of still applying and eventually getting in. So we generally get well over 1,000 applications, which also answers the, am I getting individual feedback from these applications? Most likely you will not. However, we invite the top 20% of companies, just about 200 of them, to one of our pitch events. And I'll talk about when are those pitch events, where are those pitch events in a little bit. Out of those, the top 5%, so about 50 companies, get invited to join the accelerator. And I already mentioned this when I talked about the types of series you're raising or the stage of your company. About 60% of the companies are early stage, and we are a later stage accelerator. And so for us, early stage means you have a functional prototype. You probably have already raised a seed round, and you're raising a Series A. Mid stage for us is Series B or C. Very often those are clinical stage companies, and really they're looking for the next boost of growth. And I'll also speak about geography in that context. Usually the breakdown is similar, also 60-40, North America and rest of the world. We have an Asia Pacific program. And so if your geographic focus, if your industry focus is in Asia Pacific, we encourage you to apply to that program. But if you are working on a US focus, really want to grow your presence in the US market, the US program is the right one. I already mentioned the visibility. We do 2 showcases and 5 competitions. And I already mentioned we do early stage awards and mid stage awards, and some of those overlap. So those are the 5 competitions. With that, let me make sure I keep us on track here. So the expectations, again, early to mid stage startups in medical devices, healthcare, IT, and diagnostics. Early to mid stage means you are incorporated at the time of the accelerator program start. Otherwise, you're definitely too early stage. Runway to execute on current milestones. Keep in mind, the program kicks off in June. We are about to hit December. That is quite a while. I mentioned prototypes, some proof of concept evidence, and funds raised seed to Series C. So, IPO is too late. Before that, it's worth applying. And we also expect that if you are admitted into the program, that you commit a senior member of your team, a co-founder, a CEO, to the program. Sending your director of marketing or of business development will simply result in a less good experience. I think part of the magic is really being in a group of high-performing CEOs. I mentioned I was going to talk about dates. So January 31st is the application deadline. However, don't procrastinate and submit just at the deadline. We review applications on a rolling basis. And so we will start sending things out to reviewers definitely well before January. And especially if you're looking at the dates, for example, of the West Coast event, that's March 13, 14. We don't make a decision on any one application to invite someone before it hasn't been reviewed by at least 3-4 people. And so in order for 3-4 people to review that application, sooner is better. So don't procrastinate, submit an application. But and I'd recommend that you pick, so we ask you in your application to pick a preferred and a second best type pitch event. And so depending on your geography or where you're planning on being at those dates, pick that event. Otherwise, we'll pick for you and we'll try and figure out where you are. But practically pick the event that makes sense for you. In late May, we will let folks know that they're admitted. And so strong suggestion, if you have been invited to pitch, to block your calendar for June 12 to 13, so that if and when we call you to say, congratulations, you're in, you don't say, I've got something else really important going on those days. And then June through October, the virtual program, October 15 to 17 is the AdvaMed conference in Toronto. And with that, I want you to apply. This QR code takes you straight to the application page. I'll leave that up for a couple of seconds. And I'm seeing questions coming in. I'll take a quick look at those in a second. But I want to bring up Ellington. I want to bring back Ellington. Ellington is CEO and co-founder of Sonavi Labs. I want to give her a chance to tell you about herself, tell you a little bit about her company. And then, of course, I want to ask her a couple of questions regarding her MTI experience. And while Ellington speaks to you, I'm going to take a quick look at those questions. Ellington, thank you for taking the time to be here and giving back to the MTI community. We're so glad you're here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about Sonavi Labs.
Of course, Diane, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I think that you hit the nail right on the head. This is my MTI family. And anytime that I have an opportunity for us to be together again, I leap at the opportunity. So thank you. So to everyone on the call, my name is Ellington West. I am the CEO and co-founder of Sonavi Labs. We are, you guessed it, a medical device and software company that is harnessing the power of artificial intelligence to transform the way we detect, diagnose, and manage respiratory diseases. We are FDA 510(k) cleared. We have 9 patents, and we're really focused on helping patients manage their chronic respiratory diseases. We have developed a device and platform that listens to the sound of your lungs, analyzes those sounds, and then shares that actionable data with care teams anywhere in the world. When we started, we were a small university spin out that had partnered with the Gates Foundation to really focus on infant mortality as it relates to pneumonia specifically. We very quickly then transitioned from acute conditions to chronic disease management as it relates to COPD and asthma. And we founded the company back in 2017. So it's been a great and exciting journey. But when I really think about the inflection point for our company, it was when we were accepted into the MTI cohort last year. And I just thought it was so great when Diane was talking about people who need to continue to apply, or that they should continue to apply, because we applied not once, but twice. And then we were accepted because we actually also got so much great feedback from the application process. So I just think that there's always so much to learn along the way. And when we finally got that win, it was like being accepted into Harvard. I was like, yes, it happened. It's our time. It's our moment. And the resources have been invaluable. The relationships that I've been able to cultivate, both among other CEOs, but even more importantly, with patients, with opportunities, with strategic partners and mentors. So anything that I can do to help tell the story of why I think this is such an important just part of your journey as a leader is because I know how impactful it was for me.
Thank you so much, Ellington. Really appreciate that. Let me just follow up on that. I find the hardest thing, I can talk all day about how amazing this program is, but the hardest thing is really putting myself in the mind of someone who hasn't heard very much about MedTech Innovator. I would love to hear from you what's the difference now with hindsight? What did you expect? And what did you get? What are the things that are hard to convey that I'd love for you to share with the audience?
So I think that we're all friends here. I can't see any of you, but I think we're all friends. And what I will say is that We all, if you have been the CEO or the leader of a med tech company, you have been involved in accelerators before. And so I wasn't sure what to expect because the experiences that I had had prior to MedTech Innovator had been very inconsistent when it came to programming and understanding the actual needs of leaders who are developing devices. And I think that we all have to recognize that we're in a very unique category, just existing in this space. And so what I was expecting is exactly what I got, in the sense that there was a nuanced understanding of what it takes to be and to create and to scale a successful medical device company. What I was nervous about was that maybe it was too early for us. Maybe we weren't mighty enough to compete and to be among the 5%, right, that were selected. But what I realized once we were accepted, and what did surprise me, was the range of actual stages of companies. And so the very first day that we all got together, we got in this line, and it was to just really focus on a timeline of where are you to readiness for your launch or commercialization. And this amazing group of like 200 people were just spanned across the room. And what we saw was that there was somebody representing every piece of the journey. And that's where I just had this amazing exhale, because I knew that I would, no matter what, find my place. Because even in our nuanced space of med device and in this startup world, there are still these subcategories where there's commonalities that we have that otherwise are kind of bulldozed over when you're in, like, I don't know, a technology agnostic cohort. So I think that just the focus and the welcoming that I felt in order to grow my company and to be almost truthfully vulnerable was incredibly helpful for me.
Thank you so much for that. I feel hearing it from you is very impactful, and it is often hard for me to put myself into your shoes. Really appreciate that insight. I think we've asked some of our alumni this year and last year to give us something about their experience. So I'm putting that slide up. And there are a number of questions, and I so appreciate the team answering some of the questions that came into the chat. I'll answer questions that came into Q&A live. So combination products are in scope, absolutely. I always encourage people to look at cohort companies or past cohort companies. And so if you look at the website and you look at the portfolio, you will definitely see in the 2023 cohort 2 combination products that are a drug device. And so that's hard. We know that is hard. And that's perhaps why you need extra, or that is one more reason why you may need extra support. I also want to encourage folks, if you have questions specific to Ellington, I'll do a lot of the talking, but the reason I invited her to join me is exactly that some of the things I can only respond to from my vantage point, not yours. So I'll put the application up one more time for folks to grab that. And I'll keep scrolling through some of the questions. So yes, you do need to be a formed company. If you have not formed a company, you are definitely a little too much on the early side. You would not benefit as much from the program. What I will say is, if you are at company formation stage, I highly encourage you to do another earlier stage accelerator first. I have been part of the industry for a hot minute and have been working with other accelerators. I think boot camps and accelerators that focus more on product market fit, your classic I-Core, the types of things, whether you do I-Core or you do something else, highly recommend those. It will show in your path to market. So if you haven't formed a company, form a company, apply next year. But if you haven't raised any money, somebody else asked that, if you haven't raised any money yet, that's not necessarily an exclusion criterion. We fully recognize that it's a substantially different thing to, say, for example, do a healthcare IT play. Maybe you're a solo founder and you have single-handedly created an app or a healthcare IT solution. You may not have needed to raise money to get there. If you're making heart valves, creating a prototype will cost you enough money where you needed to raise money. So it's a different situation for different people. I would encourage you to apply. So we do accept solo founders. It really depends on what you do. Folks who are later stage, they have their IRB approvals and have fully functional prototypes. That's fantastic. We're glad you do. Definitely apply. Early stage seed round companies. Currently only grant funding. So does that refer to safe notes, convertible notes? I'm just going to say we don't discriminate on the basis of the funding you have. I get the same, so that was not your question, but I also get a lot of questions about what if I only got crowdfunding? I know that some investors frown at crowdfunding. It really depends on what your product is, how far you are along. We don't discriminate on the basis of the funding. So if you've done a say for a convertible note round, fantastic, apply. If you've got BARDA funding, do you apply with everyone or do you go through BARDA and BARDA contacts? I would say apply like everyone. Our friends at BARDA, just like all of our other partners, are part of reviewing applications. And so that just means applications that directly pertain to potential military applications get routed their way. They get preferred review, but you'll be reviewed by others as well, because heck, if what you do is relevant to BARDA, it may be relevant to others as well. Someone asked, we have 2 different medical devices. Should we submit an application for just one or 2 separate applications for 2? I highly recommend you pick one. I don't recommend applying for 2 separate ones. If you have 2 separate spun out companies, I would consider applying with each company. But we have a couple of companies, even in the 2023 portfolio, that have several products, but their focus for the accelerator is just one product. And I think that has worked well for the 2 companies that I can immediately think of. So apply for one. We are not a medical device. How does the first medical device conference work for those of us? Boy, that's a tricky question. Terry, we are not a medical device. So my guess would be that you are then in healthcare IT or in diagnostics. Otherwise, you may be somewhat out of scope. I would say medical device conferences always have startups, companies, and investors that have interests broader than just that particular conference's focus. And so I would say definitely apply and definitely pitch. Sometimes being the lone outsider at a conference where everybody else looks the same is a real benefit. Sometimes it's a disadvantage. That is why we created the BioTools Innovator program, so that BioTools companies have a place of their own with investors that are interested in BioTools, with experts that have expertise in BioTools. And we'll talk more about that at the combined, let me make sure I've got that slide up. We will do a combined info session December 14 with BioTools Innovator. And that info session will, in part, answer the question, should I apply to BioTools Innovator or MedTech Innovator? BioTools I define, and I'll let my colleagues do the better definition at that one, but I will define biotools as the tools that allow for drug discovery, the tools that allow for personalized medicine like cell therapy and gene therapy. So things that are definitely pertinent to human medicine, but may not be a medical device. Neither of our accelerator programs deal with molecules, with drugs in and of themselves, but a path towards drug discovery is absolutely in scope for BioTools Innovator. And so if that question, we are not a medical device, pertain to we're a better fit to BioTools Innovator, look at the BioTools Innovator website and decide whether that would be a better fit. Iman, you have done I-Core. I-Core is great. Everybody should do I-Core at least once in their life. If you don't know what that is, the NSF I-Core program is fantastic. I would say a very large portion of our companies have done it, but it is often 2, 3, 5 years ago because they're further down the line. So I think I already answered that. Is it necessary to have raised the seed round? And if you've progressed on non-dilutive funding. So no, you don't have to have raised a seed fund. It's not a hard and fast rule. We look holistically at your company. One of the specific areas of interest is opioid overdose prevention. Do you have impact and philanthropic partners or mentors? This is the part where I say, whatever partners or contacts we don't have like front and center for the program. First of all, I can immediately think of at least 2 companies, not in the 2023 cohort, but at least one in the 2022 cohort that you should definitely talk to. Simply, I think talking to another CEO who is in the same space, sometimes you may be direct competitors, often you're not. Having someone who understands your space as well and has already talked to a bunch of investors and a bunch of KOLs in your space and maybe a couple of steps ahead of you is incredibly powerful. That, again, speaks to the community. We do not have a drug overdose separate program or a separate channel, but if you're in that space, you should definitely apply. And whatever contacts or connections we don't have, we can reach. Our network is from doing this for 11 years. We sure have met some great people with very varied interests. Could you talk to the difference between BioTools and MedTech Innovator? And yes, I did. So I'm glad that I already answered that. How do nominations affect the application process? That particular anonymous attendee must have gotten an email from me saying, congratulations, you were nominated, which is fantastic. We ask our friends, and our friends are people like Ellington, our alumni, and our friends are also our partners, investors who have in the past invested in MedTech Innovator companies. These are people we know, understand what we do. And we ask them, is there someone you know that really should be part of this program? And if they're willing to put their name, associate their name and their reputation with your reputation, that tells us something. That gives you priority review. In the end, that doesn't mean you get in, but you have our attention. We look at the message and the messenger. And so nominations are great, but you don't have to have one to get in. We want the best startups from anywhere on the planet to apply, and not knowing anyone who is one of our friends is not a detractor. If our market is somewhat niche, is that going to be exclusionary? That's an excellent question. I really appreciate that, Sharon. I'm going to say it depends. We have for years done, for example, a pediatrics track. You could consider, depending on how you look at the world, pediatrics to be niche because it's by definition a smaller market. I would say, are you solving an important problem? Is there a market there? And if there is not a market naturally, is there, does philanthropy, are programs that help get these things to market, like orphan disease designations and things like that, to help? So I highly recommend applying, even if you're niche, and let us just like the person who asked about opiates overdoses, that whatever we don't have a specialized program for, a specialized mentor for, we'll find one. Do we need to be registered as a medical device company to apply? We're in a patient engagement platform. Registration as a medical device is on our roadmap, but not necessary for us in our current stage. So we recognize that people pivot. That is often an outcome of an accelerator program. I can think of one company in the 2023 cohort that is a device that was tackling a different problem, and through the guidance of their industry mentor was redirected to I'm going to call it a lower hanging fruit, a problem that is currently larger in hospital settings than the problem they were tackling. And so changing direction, or at least slightly changing direction, is always part of what we expect. That's and so if you are currently a patient engagement platform, I would want to know how much market share you have, or how likely, in the end, when we evaluate something, we are asking ourselves, how likely is this company to succeed, and how can we help? Are we the best team to help you succeed? And so it could be that we'll tell you, you know what, you'd be better served if you applied next year or 2 years from now, once you have reached the medical device stage. But that I can only tell once I look at your application. So apply. And just like Ellington said, she didn't get in at first attempt. If you don't get in, don't get frustrated. Do it again. We're a great program. And that means that we only admit 5% of applicants. That just means you should try again. What is the demographic breakdown of accepted companies? I don't have that top of mind. What I'll say, so I mentioned geographic breakdown. Demographic breakdown, it is 2023. We are aware of the fact that women and underestimated founders are underrepresented in startups in general. And so not only will we not hold that against you, we work closely. For example, one of our friends and partners is MedTech Color. We reach and we hope to be part of the solution. And I know we have statistics, and I don't have them top of mind. So let me get back to you on that one. If you want to write me a note, my email address is diane@medtechinnovator.org. I'm always happy to really converse on that one. Apologies for not having that top of mind. What if we have two very different diagnostics, screening and predictive diagnostics, for two different indications, but based on the same platform technology? Should we still put forth one technology in the application? I see your question, and I appreciate that. Oh boy, that's hard. I would talk about the platform and mention both. You can expect our judges and reviewers to be smart enough to say, I really believe in this indication, I don't believe in that indication, but I think that technology is good, go forth, right? So I think what you're aiming for is to get into the top 20% companies that get invited to pitch. And so really your goal there, I'm sorry, we're already at questions. Your goal there is to get invited to pitch, and that is putting your best foot forward to get us to see what you can do. Will the application materials be kept confidential? Great question. We are not under NDA with you. We ask you to not submit anything that is marked confidential. If it's marked confidential, we send it back to you and say, please send us a non-confidential version. So while we are not going to tweet your application materials, you cannot expect confidentiality. That said, we vet our judges and mentors for that exact thing. A reputation is hard to build. We have 11 years worth of reputation. We cannot have someone destroy it by being a bad actor. So no, they're not kept confidential, but the people who are reading them for the purpose of evaluating whether you should be invited to be part of the accelerator. But they are part of the greater MedTech ecosystem. Some of them are, have corporate jobs. And so you should not go into the level of detail that makes you nervous. You can write a great application that is non-confidential. Do you accept digital health companies focused on providing patient care? We are a digital care clinic. Digital health, absolutely, you should definitely apply. Is it too early to apply if prototypes won't be ready by mid-2024? Tricky. You can see me thinking. Did I mention you should always apply? So my best guess is you have most of your things ready. It'll take you an afternoon to apply. We do not ding you for reapplying. We strongly encourage you to reapply. So I would say apply. Do you admit MedTech companies preparing for FDA clearance, or do you focus more on FDA cleared and approved companies? Great question, appreciate that. I would say, I'm not going to give you a statistic, but my gut feeling says about half of the companies are somewhere en route towards FDA clearance. And so that is by no means a prerequisite. I would say on the contrary, it really, just like Ellington said, there is a broad band of what we call early stage that are perhaps getting ready for FDA submission, and later stage that may be in market. And so definitely apply. The fact that you're asking the question tells me that you have at least thought through your regulatory strategy. That's helpful. It will help answer some of the questions in the application, and it will help answer some of the judges' questions. Is the application information confidential? We already answered that. So glad we've got that. Clearly that came up for several people. What are my top recommendations or things to avoid to make a strong application? Look, if you have a video, share it. I've looked at some of the applications, and so I think pictures say 1,000 words, videos say 1,000 words. Those are, and then, pick the right event you would like to invite it to pitch to. We cannot guarantee that. What else? I would say that's it. Put your best foot forward. How important is the business model for being selected and hopefully get to the finals? Good question. Business model is obviously critical. It is eventually, this will be, it is the only thing that matters, right? Can you bring something into the market? Assuming your science works, assuming your technology works, will somebody be willing to pay for this? Will somebody be able to get reimbursed for this? How you are going to make money, i.e. your business model, is critical. But do I expect that it's set in stone? No. So those are the types of things I expect to see pivots and changes in during the accelerator program. And so I definitely hear our judges sometimes say things like, great technology, terrible business model, we'll have to work on that. But that is something mentorship can help you with. And so don't overly worry. Do your best thinking on what your business model should be, and you'll get ours. I have a more specific question about our situation. Do you mind if you share your email again? I'm happy to do that. Just keep in mind, we get well over 1,000 applications. it is very hard to have one-on-ones with 1,000 people. And so that's why we do these webinars. I'm happy to talk to folks. So by all means, my name is Diane and my email address is my first name at medtechinnovator.org. I'm not hard to find. Just know that the day only has 24 hours and I might not be able to get to you immediately. Great. Iman, look forward to connecting. Does women's health fit under the global health interest areas, referring specifically to physiological processes like menopause? Absolutely. Thank you, Maria, for asking that question. Femtech, women's health, women's and children's health are definitely in scope. So is menopause. I would say what is more out of scope are wellness solutions. And so, as you and I both know, there are a ton of menopause wellness solutions out there. I think our expertise and our network does not necessarily lend itself for lifestyle and wellness companies, but I know too little about you to know whether that is you. If we're talking about MedTech tackling menopause, boy, that sounds like a really important problem. So by all means, do apply. I don't see sports med as a strategic interest. That's where our technology will be used. Should I still apply? What I'm going to say is, to me, if I zoom out of sports med, I end up in orthopedics. And orthopedics are definitely a vertical that we look at. We just had 2 weeks ago the mid-stage finals, and one of the finalists was Alive Medical, Alive with a Y. You should look them up. I do consider what they do definitely to be sports medicine. And so I would say sports medicine in general is in scope. I would say the difference being, are we talking about a device or a service? But in general, it depends, but probably in scope. I would like to watch this webinar again. Will it be available? The answer is yes. We are recording for a reason. We're also live streaming, and folks will be able to watch this on LinkedIn later. But yes, you are very welcome to watch this again. Thanks for asking that question. And again, we'll do some more of these as well, because I know many of you have not even started an application yet. You might have more specific questions after you started your application, so come back. Is this presentation being recorded? Yes, it is. Fantastic. It looks like I am in my last 9 minutes running low on questions, which is fantastic. Is it okay if our device will enter the market as a wellness device initially, but as we get more data, we will look to file for FDA clearance? Is that okay? That is a trick. I'm going to say that's an edge case, Karen. I would have to see the application, but practically, my mantra here is most likely. So most companies at the somewhat later stage or not, like company formation, have most of their materials ready to copy paste anyway. The application should not take you longer than an afternoon. Apply. It's worth your time. And if truly you are too much on the wellness side of the equation, then you would not be getting into the 2024 program. And then I would encourage you to apply again as you move towards more of a medical device. The requirement to have runway for current milestones is 3, 6, 9 months. Please elaborate. Appreciate that question, John. Look, I am not looking into your bank accounts. What I hope is to admit a company to the accelerator that is not about to go bust mid-program. That may be a little harsh to put it this way, but realistically, if you're this close to going out of business and you've got like runway for 2 more weeks and you're shutting the company down, then it's probably it's probably not a great time to do an accelerator. We want to catch you at a time when the advice and the mentorship you are being given is its most impactful. And so that's really why we talk about runway. But practically, you and I both know that runway is not a hard science. And so it's not a, you must have 3, 6, or 9 months. It is really, where are you and can you achieve things? And when would the recording be available? I believe for this webinar, if you signed up for the webinar, whether you showed up or not, you will be sent the recording. And so, give it a couple of hours. All right. I want to make sure that we stay within the timeline. I really appreciate you being here today. I am going to just go back to the beginning slide. I want to thank Ellington for joining me. I think that was incredibly helpful, even if not a lot of folks asked questions to her. Please come back on December 14 when we do the BioTools MedTech Innovator shared session. Please apply. The support email goes to more than one person. And so support@medtechinnovator.org is also a great place to ask questions, submit questions, or even ask technical questions as in my application is doing something funny. I hope to see all of your applications. I appreciate all of you being here today. I want to give a little bit of time in case there are extra questions coming in. Somebody just asked, I couldn't find cancer as one of the strategic interest areas. We are an oncology company with a novel diagnostic. Do you think we're eligible? Heck yes. If you look at, I always say, look at the 2023 cohort announcement. Whenever I talk to someone, I always say, look at these 60 companies, look what they do, read the one-liner. It gives you an idea of who what our criteria were. Of course, we have a list of criteria for you, but seeing the companies sometimes is incredibly helpful. Good. With that, I want to thank the MTI team in the background answering to all the chats. Just because I was mostly focusing on Q&A, I'm going to ask my team verbally to see if there's anything that was in the chat that I really need to address. Otherwise, I am going to take a moment, say thank you, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Right, I see one more question. Companies that are pre-revenue but have working prototypes, how much do you value letters of intent to get admitted, and how much do you focus on securing more LOIs? I would say herein lies the difference between, say, an SBIR grant application and MedTech Innovator. If you tell me you have, I'm going to make this up, 3 hospitals ready to go, I'm going to take you at your word. A letter of intent is great, and I sometimes see those in applications, but don't spend your time getting letters of intent from people. That is not going to make a difference. Tell me as much as you feel comfortable and are allowed to say. Tell me if you have interest from strategics. Tell me if you have interest from customers. Don't make it up, but I think that's great. Great. Okay, I am not seeing or hearing any other questions. Double checking in. Super. It's been a pleasure. I am looking forward to connecting with you in person at pitch events coming next spring. And in the meantime, I wish you a great rest of your day. Really appreciate it. I'm going to stop sharing to look you in the eye. And I'm going to stop recording and wish you a great rest of your day. We're going to stop the webinar. Have a great rest of your day.